Hey everyone, welcome back. If you're running a D2C brand, leading ops, or if you're a founder who breaks out in hives when you hear the phrase fine tune your embeddings and you have no clue what that means or what it even means for your profit, then this episode is for you. Today, we're tackling the thing that most founders actually fail to see. That AI tool you bought to save you time and resources is also probably quietly hemorrhaging money. Well, we're going to fix that today. First, I'll break down the 19 costs bleeding your revenue dry and, more importantly, the exact playbook to stop it. And obviously, you don't need to have any technical skills for that matter. This is a very technical episode. I promise you will enjoy and you will take to the race right away. If you're new here, I'm Leo, founder of Ascend AI, where we tie your AI solutions directly to your revenue, and you're listening to the No Code Founder podcast. All right, let's start with a weird example that will make a lot of sense. When we say the word or the phrase AI is free, it's like we're saying a puppy is free. Sure, you didn't pay for the puppy, but then there is the vet bills, the chewed furniture, the carpet cleaning, and on and on and on. The puppy here isn't the problem. The resulting mess is the problem. Now, the same concept applies here for AI. The AI model isn't the problem. What it leaves behind is. You see, what bothers me here the most is that a lot of us obsesses over ROI projections, as we should to a degree. I think that's our curse as founders, but nobody prices the downside. And we will do that today. But first, we need a clear definition of what it means when I use the word bad AI in the title. I don't just mean here the generic awkward emails. Yes, it's a thing, but it's way bigger than that. So, to simplify, bad AI comes in three flavors. We got the wrong fit, the wrong goal, and the wrong setup. So let's just run through each briefly. The wrong fit, basically you're using an LLM to make judgment calls without any guardrails. It's like you let it decide discount levels in the wholesale outreach. I mean, that's not assistance if you ask me. That's delegation without oversight. The second one is the wrong goal. Basically, you're optimizing for speed when the expensive thing is accuracy. For example, it's like you sign up for an email platform to 5x your email sent per month. This is wrong because one promised discount to the wrong person can really nuke your margins. And lastly, we got the wrong setup. This is an easy one, but often unseen, unfortunately. It's when you hook up an LLM to your business with basically no baseline metrics, no guidelines, no kill switch, no review setup, none of that. You literally cannot tell if it's working until a customer calls in to complain. Now, this leads me to what I like to call the 100-to-1 rule. And it's simple. It goes like this. If a single AI error wipes out the value of 100 correct actions, a human gatekeeper isn't just a nice to have, it's a financial necessity. I hope you got that down. So let's recap. We've got the wrong fit, the wrong goal, and the wrong setup. Okay, now you're wondering, where do these specific flavors show up as a line item on my profit and loss statement? That's a good question because this takes me exactly to the 9 costs buckets that I told you about earlier. Starting off with the first one, let's just call it the cleanup cost. This is when your team spends hours fixing AI emails that just sound terrible or canceling meetings that were booked under the wrong terms. I'm sure you've heard about similar cases before, so we don't really need to dive deeper into that. But you got the picture here. You can actually track this here through the ticket reopen rates. Okay, just check it with your support team. Tickets that were supposed to be closed and solved a long time ago. Now, the second point, I like to call it exception handling. It basically means when edge cases become daily cases. For example, the AI might offer wholesale pricing to a retail customer, or it might send a US-only promo to your EU-based list. So now your teams are babysitting the bots instead of actually doing the right work. I'm sure you know what I mean with that. Now, this takes me to the third point, customer churn. This is pretty self-explanatory. We all know that personalization is key to conversions no matter what or which vertical you operate in. But what happens when it gets creepy or just wrong? Like wrong name, wrong product, wrong claims, or wrong info that was sent you never even approved. Well, let's just say it's just a terrible spot to be at. So what happens here? A lot, to be honest. Your unsubscription rate might go up. Your spam complaints might go up too. Your domain reputation might tank, and a lot of other terrible stuff. Now, even your good emails don't land. Yeah, I almost forget about this one. I added this point here because it takes months to rewarm a bad reputation from scratch. So keep this in mind. Moving on, the fourth bucket, legal exposure. This one is a big one. If you're familiar with the FTC in the US, they've been crystal clear on one thing. They said, you are responsible for what your AI says. If you have a DTC skincare brand, for example, and the AI is making health claims you didn't even approve, well, that's on you. The bot doesn't go to court, you do. So the point here, just make sure your AI isn't spinning nonsense and is being tested before deployed. Now, the fifth bucket, data leakage. You might actually be shocked when you hear about this specific point because I think you didn't even see it coming. So here's how it plays out. Let's say one of your well-meaning reps paste your entire wholesale price into GPT and ask it to, for example, write a better pitch. Well, congratulations. Now your data is stored probably in a place you can't even control, and even worse, it's probably used for training sets on these models. In fact, there's a report back in 2023 by IBM that puts the average cost of data breach over $4 million. So the point that I want you to deliver here, to take home here, is do not be a case study, okay? And don't put your sensitive data in public. Use closed or private models for your own sake. All right, on to point number 6, drift and decay. This is when you crush your target in Q1, but by Q3, you realize that your reply rates are actually down because the copy did not really adapt to any new trends or seasonal shifts. In other words, the AI has been quietly underperforming, and nobody notices that until the quarter is over, and even worse, a lot of money was left on the table. In other words, these are not the kind of tools that you just set and forget. Just treat them just like any other employee you have. They need monitoring, right? They need performance reviews every now and then. And that's how it should be for the AI tools. All right, we're down to the last 3. Hope you're with me. The 7th bucket is token creep. This one is pretty much one of the key money drainers if it's set the wrong way. You see, when you use a long prompt, asking the AI model to do too many tasks at once, like include their LinkedIn, the brand guides, summarize their website, extract this, extract that, whatever. Like you will end up in one of 2 scenarios. Highly likely, both of them. The first one is that you will either lose a lot of money with diminishing returns, or the second option will be you will get absolutely nowhere with it and you will have to reiterate the prompt over and over again. And in doing so, you actually exhaust more tokens. The point that I want you to leave here with is that there's no reason for using too many tokens for small talks or tasks, I would say, like call summary. And it makes no sense for you to use low tokens to reason through a balance sheet. The point here, you have to know exactly what AI models you use and why and where. And that's exactly how you keep your cost low when it comes to dealing with these tokens. Now, the 8th bucket or point is something that I don't think you will forget. Why is that? Well, because it has a cool name to it, shadow AI. This is when your team members, frustrated with the tool you have, go behind your back to buy their own tools, or even worse, try too many different tools at once. So now you end up with 5 different vendors, 3 brand messages or voices, and 0 consistent metrics. You see, the cost here isn't just the subscriptions of these tools. I think the ultimate cost here that you're paying is a fractured brand and unmanageable data that you don't even seem to use to make a sound judgment or decision. So how do you get out of this? Well, the remedy here is simple. Just stick to one tool chain and one brand voice. That's it. No rogue tools in production. And finally, the one that we all agree to hate, vendor lock-in. Sadly, some platforms make it so hard to leave, especially when you have most of your data with them. So they make switching here really, really hard because A, you either have to rebuild from scratch, or B, you need to pay a lot of money just to break the contract. So unfortunately, you have no other choice but to stay with this tool or that platform while paying a lot of money for mediocre results. And there you have it, folks. These are the 9 things, the 9 tools, the buckets, the notes, commandments, call them whatever you want. I just want you to keep them in mind because if you want to scale in the AI age the right way, if you don't bypass these 9 things, you will fail. I guarantee you that. Now, this takes me to a very interesting note. I'm guessing most people don't see these costs associated with these notes because they're spread across multiple departments, right? It's not just a one-line item. If you're a D2C owner, for example, it might show up as, well, customer support took longer this month, or our email performance dipped, or legal had some questions, and so on and so forth. So you have all of these excuses, all of these different scenarios, but nobody can connect the dots back to AI. And yeah, if you're sitting over there thinking that these are just theoretical costs or hypothetical scenarios, well, let me share with you 2 horror stories that happened to 2 big names that fell exactly into some of these buckets. First of all, we got Air Canada. You see, back in 2022, their chatbot gave a customer wrong information about bereavement fares, but the guy ended up booking anyway based on that. So when he arrived to the airport, the Canadian airline, or Air Canada, I would say, said, "Oh no, it's not our fault. The bot was wrong." So after a few months of back and forth or whatever, the Canadian tribunal said to Air Canada, "Nope, the bot speaks for you. You're liable. Your AI words are your words." So eventually, the guy got about $800 for the damages. Now, let me share with you another story, and this one is on a massive scale. Another recent issue that was all over the news recently that you probably heard of is from Deloitte. You see, briefly, the company had to refund a portion of its fee for a government report that contained serious errors caused by the use of AI. You see, the report was riddled with hallucinations, including, fabricated quotes from a judge and references to non-existent academic research. It's just wild. It's just wild. You see, the contract value was almost 440 Australian dollars, 1,000 Australian dollars, of course. That's about 290,000 US dollars, give or take. They used Azure OpenAI GPT-4 model for that, to draft the report and everything. But apparently there was no human review or fact-checking of a report of such magnitude. So I hope you keep these things in mind. It happens to you, whether you're a big company like Deloitte, or if you're just a small, normal, average human individual like us, who's just on his way to the airport or whatever. So keep these things in mind. And I hope these two stories have put a lot of things in perspective, the impact of what might happen when you ignore or pay less attention from the get-go to these 9 buckets. If you pay attention to them, I promise you, you will be unstoppable in the age of AI. You have my word. We're almost approaching the finish line. I hope you're staying with me because right now I'm about to drop really, really good stuff on you. All right. So we got 2 more things. The first one is something that I touched upon earlier, which is pricing the downside. What does that even mean? How do you go even about it? And lastly, we will wrap things up with the exact playbook that you can use and confidently scale with AI. So let's just start with the first one, pricing the downside. To make sure that you really, really get it and exactly what I mean here, I'm going to give you a hypothetical scenario that is relevant to pretty much almost all of us hearing this right now. Let's say you're a D2C brand using email to find new retail partners. It's a pretty common case, right? So let's just say your current business right now without AI is the following. You send 20,000 emails a month for outreach. And out of all of those 2,000, you get 300 replies. And out of them, you get 10 new wholesale orders per month. And each order is $600, for example. So 10 times 600, now your monthly profit from outreach alone is $6,000. All right, so now you're happy, you get excited, and you decide to use AI to wrap things up, Let's just say the cost of using AI on a monthly base is $4,000, all right? So the best case scenario here, if everything goes perfectly, you end up getting more profit and more replies and more orders. Why? Because you assume AI will at least get you 30 or 40 or 50% more outreach. And by extension, you will get more replies. And by that, you will also get hopefully more conversions and so on. So, and instead of 6K without AI, now you're getting probably 10K, 20, 50, or 100K, whatever that might be, right? Minus the cost for AI, which is 4,000. Regardless of that, you'll still end up profitable and your margins are healthy. All right. This is the best case scenario. And this is exactly where most founders at. All right. They get stuck in ROI projections and they never even spend a second to think about the downside when things go wrong and how much impact that can get or bring to the business. So speaking of things that could go wrong, let's just use some hypothetical scenarios as a result of using AI. For example, sending too many emails too frequently can hurt your sender score. That means your next batch will highly likely end up in spams. Why is that? Remember, because in the beginning, you decided to use AI to ramp up your email outreach, right? And instead of hitting 20,000 people or outreach per month, now you want to hopefully get 30 or 40 or whatever that might be. So when you do that, when you bump up the score, when you bump up the email sends, highly likely most of them will end up in a spam. And at that point, you have 2 ways out. Number 1, you either have to rewarm again, and that will take months, right? Or you pretty much have to shut down these email providers and you need to buy a whole new bunch of different emails. All right. So that's one hypothetical scenario. The second hypothetical scenario is, let's just say, wrong discounts. What happens now if your AI send the wrong discount to just 50 people out of all these 30K or 40K people, right? The outreach, I mean. Let's just say you send the wrong discount to just 50 people. Of course, all of them will buy into it, right? Why wouldn't they? It's a discount on their favorite item, right? So they're happy, but you're not. Why is that? Well, because your margins now are in bad shape. So to fix this, you will be falling into one of the key buckets that I outlined earlier, and that is cleaning up the mess. All right. Now your team is babysitting your AI and reworking a lot of mess. Why? Just to clean up the mess. Remember what I said earlier. AI models aren't the problem. The mess they leave is, and this is a huge mess to deal with. So here's a question for you. How much money would you price your brand reputation to be? Just think about it. All right. How much money would you put on customer trust in your brand? How much is it for reliability? I hope you know where I'm going with this. The big picture here that I want to show you or demonstrate to you is that implementing AI isn't just about projecting the upside. You must also budget for the potential downsides, like this reputational damage or operational errors or even the essential costs of human oversight and so many other things, right? Like if you don't factor all of that in, well, you will risk losing a lot of money and a lot of customers. It's that simple. There's no other way around it. So the ideal question at this point, now that you know exactly what I was talking about, how do you engineer your way out of this downside? Like, how do you go from 20K, 30, 50, 100, 200, whatever that might be in unforeseen damages to actually positive returns and profits right away? Well, as I said, you price the downside first. So here's the playbook for doing just that without burning your cash. Take notes, folks. We have 7 nuggets to deal with here, so let's just kick things off with the first one. Start in the low regret zones. You see, the first episode of this podcast was all about this point, so go ahead and give it a listen. It's about 10 to 12 minutes long, and you'll walk away with the ideal strategy that you can implement right now exactly to find the right automation opportunities in your business. But in a nutshell, since you're here, the TLDR version of it is to basically start with the easy to do, fast to implement, and high upside automations first. Things like internal drafts, support macros, subject line variations, summarizing customer feedback, and pushing it to the right rep, to name a few, are just some of the great starting points that will really, really free up a lot of your time and resources, especially for your teams for that matter. Now, I also want you to keep humans in controls of anything that involves high-level interference or approvals, like something legal or pricing or claims or whatever that might be. Of course, if you had already configured your AI to deal with these high-level things, then yeah, go ahead and let the AI do its thing after you tested it internally. Now, the second nugget is to instrument everything. You see, don't just watch open rates. That's boring. You don't really get enough data out of it to make a sound judgment. I want you to dive deeper. I want you to track replies, to analyze customers' sentiment, to see how many meetings booked, to see what is the subscription rate, the unsubscription rate for that matter. How many spams? Do you even have complaints? Is everything good? Is your domain health quite top notch? Do you offer discount usage? Is it actually performing well? Does it even reach the right customer or segment? And so on and so forth. I want you to pay attention to that, and you can do that very easily, like just build a simple weekly scorecard or a dashboard to track all of these metrics. And, if something dips, you slow down to stop, to fix it, and that's it. That's exactly what we do in my agency. We keep everything transparent for ourselves and for our clients, and that actually helps us to stay ahead of any errors without actually disrupting any operations for that matter. The third nugget or point is pretty much very simple. It's guardrails. Before you blast your customer segments with tons of emails, maybe you should consider warming up your domains slowly. Tell the AI how it should handle any specific cases, how it should respond to a specific conflict or a specific segment, and so on and so forth. Write down these scripts and don't let the AI freestyle its way all the time. Your role is to scan outputs for anything that may be off or weird, so you can hit pause, fix, and then push back again a more functional version for that matter. Now, this takes me to the fourth nugget, which is to test continuously. Before you deploy, you should test. Ideally, you should A/B test your AI against any human rep or whatever use case you're using AI for. And most importantly, or more importantly, you should cost weigh your test. In simple terms, a wrong discount, all right, should count way more than a mispersonalization. If the AI drifts or underperforms, just hit pause, roll back, see where the AI falls short, come up with a better version, and then retest it again, and then push the better version out. The fifth nugget is to watch for your token spend. All right. As far as I could tell, there are 2 ways that you can use or implement to stay ahead of that. The first one is something that I just explained earlier. You need to know exactly which AI model to use to solve for that specific use case you're after. That's a whole new different category, and maybe we can have a separate conversation about that in the podcast another time. The second one is something I would say is a little bit simple, but it will require you maybe a weekend or so. But it's something that you do once and probably should, to kind of cover your track for at least 6 months or so, which is to build your own prompt library. Whatever the use cases you're trying to solve, whatever AI, let's just say a solution that you're after, or customer segments that you want to target, build prompt for each and every single one of them. I promise you, when you do that, obviously the shorter prompts always win, then you will preserve a lot of these tokens without sacrificing the outcome, which is important here. Moving on to the 6th nugget, which is to log your own data. All right, right off the bat, you should always use enterprise endpoints that don't train on your data, period. Train your team on what not to paste into these AI models, just to be extra sure, right? Because as I told you earlier, we don't want your data to be training sets for these models, right? And it will be also helpful to kind of keep audit logs around just to make sure that you're covering as much area as possible. And also, for what it's worth, you should never, ever deal with any platform that has no security protocols or privacy built in, period. And this takes me to the last and final nugget to seal the deal, which is to vet your vendors like you would vet a co-founder or a spouse. All right, let that sink in for a while. Can you export your data from that vendor? Is there a kill switch? How do you handle incidents, for example? All right, is there a support team dedicated specifically for you? What is the SLA? Can you leave in 30 days, for example, if it's not working? And so on and so forth. Obviously, it's a huge checklist. I'm happy to share that after the show if you want to reach out to me on LinkedIn or X. Obviously, all of these links are linked down below in the show notes. So now that you have all these nuggets, all right, so against all of these points, you can right now see if your AI is actually making you money or losing you a lot of money. All right, I'm going to list down a few things, right at the top of my head, and I want you to tell me if that actually is the case in your business. First one, your reply rate is flat or down while volume is up. The unsubscription range is climbing. Discounts per order are rising, but your margin is falling. Your best people are QAing, quality assuring AI instead of selling. No one can explain why the AI said what it said. Your prompts keep getting longer and longer to fix edge cases that shouldn't even happen. Teams, this one, oh my goodness, this one is so wild. Teams, your teams for that matter, your teams are secretly using different tools to work around the process. So if you happen to fall under any of these buckets that I just outlined, I promise you it's not too late to turn the ship around and save your store. And I can also guarantee you that when you run your operations against these nodes or buckets, you will be amazed by the audit quality and, more importantly, the clarity that you will get around your business and what to do forward with AI. You see, as far as I can tell, the future is AI for e-commerce and D2C owners. And knowing how to use it is the key factor that can and will separate your brand, your authority, and client trust against your competition. So go ahead, run these nodes against your business, and you will be amazed. I promise you that. If anything is off, just fix it right now before you do anything else. As simple as that. If you're already using AI, though, and you're beating your baseline for 2 weeks straight, awesome. Expand by 20%. If not, pause and figure out why. That's it. You're in command. That's pretty much the whole thing here. You're in command while your AI is working on your behalf for your bottom line. Remember, boring and reliable is always better than flashy and broken. Okay? Keep that in mind. Boring and reliable is always better than flashy and broken. Now, I know we talked a lot today and we covered a lot of ground in this very particular tactical episode. And my only hope is that I actually did a good job simplifying your way to profit with AI. The reason why I actually decided to record this conversation in particular is because, well, the holiday season is just around the corner and I would really love for you to grab as much profit as possible with AI. Now, to make sure we're on the same page here, to recap, remember, the biggest cost of AI isn't the software itself, it's the mess it causes. Price the downside, not just the projections. Keep humans in control of pretty much of all the expensive decisions, or the high level, let's just say, type of approvals, right? Unless you have trained your AI to handle that efficiently. And finally, most importantly, only scale what's reliable and what's ideal for your own use case. So if you mix the content of this episode with the previous one, I guarantee you will be way ahead of so many others with AI in about a week's time or less. I promise you that. And that takes me to the final section. It's pretty much it. That's it. If you need the vendor checklist, just before I forgot, if you need that vendor checklist, just reach out to me on LinkedIn or X. Everything is listed below or linked below, and I will send it to you right away. And if you want us to audit your brand and implement the right solutions for your bottom line, my agency's link is in the show notes as well. We pretty much do, these audits for brands almost every single day. So if you made it this far, I want to thank you for listening. And if you got something out of this episode, please share it with just 2 friends, to kind of help spread the word and also to help them scale and grow with AI. Thank you again. This is Leo from Ascend AI, and I'll see you at the front lines.